Welcome back to my workshop, dear friends. This is Jeannie from Metal Dollhouse Rescue. Tonight we're going to do my favorite thing. We are starting a new project, and it is going to be the Marx Pet Shop. And the reason that we're working on that one is because I recently took a poll in our Facebook group, and that was what was voted on the one that most people wanted to see me work on first. Now, joke's on me, because I told you guys, I think I told you I had 9 houses to work on. I forgot to include my play steel house, so I actually had 10, and now I bought that new Marx Colonial that's got the alternative inside. I just got that on eBay, and I don't know if you saw that in my last box opening video, but it needs a lot of work on the floors, so I got to add that to the list. So here's what we're going to do. Marx Pet Shop first, and then I think I'm going to do the T-cone little ranch house because it needs almost no work. It'll be like a few hours to get it done. Then I might do the Marx Colonial with the Disney nursery. I don't think it needs a lot of work, and some of you I think are looking for copies of those Disney walls and that Disney floor, so I want to get that crossed off the list. And then I think I'll repost a list and let you guys vote again on what's the next one we're going to do after that. But tonight is going to be the Marx Pet Shop. Now, I think I can do this. It'll probably take me 2 or 3 nights to work on it, but I think I can put all those together and make one video because it's not a very big building and it doesn't need a ton of work. So we're going to start by, it's already part, we're going to clean it, we're going to assess it, then we're going to paint it, and then I'll photograph it off camera, and then we'll polish it, and then we'll put it back together and it'll be set to go. And I've got some little animals to go in it. This is going to be fun. I am really looking forward to this. Let's do it. All right, here we go. I'm ready to get started. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is clean these pieces, but I had a great reminder the other day. Well, let me show you what I'm going to use. I always like to wipe it off with rubbing alcohol first, and that's what's in here, just rubbing alcohol. And that evaporates really quick and will remove any oil or fingerprints, so that's a good place to start. Then I'll wipe it off with this, and this is just a spray cleaner. And if you didn't have this, I do like this, but if you don't have it, Awesome Cleaner from Dollar Tree works well. And also anything that's non-sudsy, for instance, like 409, that would also work fine too. And then I like to go over it with this Armor All cleaner, just gives it one more wipe in case I missed anything. So I'll do that before I begin to paint. And as I wash it off, I'll kind of assess and see if there's any other damage I need to think about. But here's my reminder. I recently read this on our Facebook group. Especially when you're starting a new project, it's a good idea to test your cleaning products on a small area of your item. You don't want to put something on here and then all of a sudden say, oh, oops, I've removed all the lithographs. So what I would do is test it like on the back or somewhere where it wouldn't be seen. Make sure that you kind of know that what your cleaning product is will not damage your item any more than it already is, because it's already old and you don't want to damage it. Now, since this is Marx and I've cleaned many Marx products, I'm pretty confident this is going to be fine. But I am going to practice what I preach and do a test on there. I will say even on Marx houses, sometimes from one to another, sometimes the lithographs or the paint is more durable on some of them than in others. So that'll give you an idea if you need to, be careful not wipe very hard. Well, that'll give you an idea. So let's just do a little test. This is the rubbing alcohol. I'm not seeing any paint coming off, any issues. Good. Let's test this cleaner. This is Spray 9 cleaner, similar to Dollar Tree, Awesome Cleaner, and also similar to like 409, something that's non-sudsy. Let's try that. I always spray right on my paper towel, not on here. You don't want to get any point down in any liquid down in these little rolls. If you do, you can cause future rust. That water or moisture can lay in there and cause future rust. That doesn't look to be any issue. We'll take a quick look at the Armor All. I don't think it will be anything either. What you're looking for is, are you wiping the paint right off? Is it getting tacky or sticky? Is it causing any damage at all to this? None of these products are so far, and that is typical of what I've seen on Marx houses. But there's a variety of producers of these beautiful little buildings, and some of them are even older than these Marxes. All right, so we're pretty good on that. I'm going to wipe everything off with alcohol, and I'm going to wipe then everything off with the cleaner. As I go, I'm going to kind of assess the damage. As I've taken a quick look at this, the one that needs the most paint is going to be this floor. It's got several kind of rusted areas that will not be hard to touch up. I don't think it'll be hard to touch up. We'll see. And you know, sometimes cleaning, you'll just be surprised how sometimes what a cleaning will do. This house is not, or this little building is not real dirty. I got this from one of our Facebook friends. Saw it at a flea market and asked me if I'd be interested and offered to ship it to me if I was. Yes, I was delighted to get it. This is one of those pieces I've been looking for, been longing to have, and thought I never ever would find one. This one was not horribly priced. I thought reasonable for what it is. And it is in nice condition. And that person that sent it to me maybe did some cleaning already. I don't recall. Anyway, so far, so good. I'm going to wipe all these off and just let you watch while I do it. Remember, I'll go through them 3 times. Rubbing alcohol, cleaner, and then the Armor All. All right, dear friends, that's probably as clean as it's going to get. Now, I could turn this sideways and see that there's almost like some spray that had dried on there, maybe a cleaner from some other time. And that took some extra wiping. Actually, I'm using still my Armor All wipe. And that did come off, but it took a little extra elbow grease. And look how dirty that Armor All strip got. And that was after I'd already washed it twice, once with rubbing alcohol and once with cleaner. Now, when you're doing this, make sure the surface doesn't get tacky. Make sure that you're not visually losing any of those lithographs. And also, when I check on my cloth, I'm looking to make sure I'm not getting red paint or green paint or something like that on my cloth. Nothing but like a little bit of gray dirt is what should be coming on my cloth. So the other thing I do is assess it as I go. There's a few kind of like minor bends that I might just use my fingers to kind of straighten them out. Now, if I need to do anything more drastic, I can get pliers out. I can also, you've seen me use the hammer and a piece of like hardwood floor. But the idea is you want this to be in the same shape that it was, the same shape or condition that it was when it was new. So you want all those bends to be where they're supposed to be and no additional bends. So I will kind of just probably use my fingers on this. There's a little dent on the floor I'll try to straighten out with probably just my fingers. I don't know that I'll use a hammer. Whoever owned this before had inserted screens in these windows, but I don't think that's original. I think original they had a clear glass with red panes on it, similar to what's on the Babyland nursery. And I may use those on the outside, but these screens are fitted so nicely, I might leave those. And you can see the inside. They've cut little holes in those screens and put them in there. I may trim that back. This one's not bad. This one I kind of think sticks up a little bit. I might trim that back. These little curls of wire I might trim off. I don't like those sticking out. But I might leave those. I'll probably leave those screens in there and just kind of trim that up a little bit. Paint-wise, I don't see much on here. Along here, the paint is worn off, that white paint, off-white paint. When I get white paint mixed up, I'll probably touch that up, and maybe here. I'll probably look at the whole piece and see if there's any white I need to touch up all the way around. But really very little missing paint on the front of the building. The roof looks pretty good. It's got a little bit missing here where it's dark. The red paint is gone. And I may just put a little bit of dark red paint right in there, not a lot. There's a little bit of crazing on this roof. You probably can't tell that. That just is from age. Remember, this is probably like 75 years old. I probably will not worry about that crazing. I'm careful when I wash it. I don't want to lose my lithographs if possible. But I will polish at the end on that one, make it a little shinier. But that will be after I get my paint touch-up done. It was a little bit dirty on the inside, not too bad. This piece, I don't know that it needs anything for paint. Looked really, really good. The floor needs some touch-up. You can see there's some missing up here. There's a little dent there. I'll probably just try to finger straighten that out, and then whatever I can do with my fingers, fine. If it doesn't get better than that, I think that's fine too, because I don't think it will really affect either the structure or the looks of this little building when it's done. So that's probably all I'm going to do. This part here is bent a little bit. I might take my pliers, I probably will, and flatten that out. Can you see how that's just bent up a little bit? That's just curled up a little bit. Get it real close. There. We'll flatten that out as much as we can before we paint. This piece is really nice on the inside. The lithographs look beautiful. On the outside, there's quite a little bit of very faint rusting and corrosion. I will not sand that, being that's so small. I don't think I'll sand it. It's a little rough. If I do, it'll be very lightly. But I may touch a little paint on there just to make that look a little bit cleaner. Otherwise, very little missing paint. The worst paint-wise is here on the floor. Okay, I'm going to straighten those out, and then I'm going to get my paints out. Okay, I feel like I can get this a little bit flatter, that corner right there, with a little bit of hammer activity. So I've got my hardwood floor out, just a chunk of wood. This is a rubber hammer. It doesn't look like it, but it's hard rubber. And I'm just going to pound. I've got that laid on that wood to hold it nice and solid. And I'm just going to tap on that harder and harder and harder till I get it as flat as I can get it. All right, this is one of the end pieces that I did not think I was going to do much painting to, and I am not. It's in good condition on both sides, but there are some little tiny red scratches here, like on this cabinet. And one of the techniques I've learned from my Dollhouse group is sometimes you can touch those up with a permanent marker, and this is a red Sharpie. So I'm going to just trace over those little scratches with my red marker. And then after I do that, you can kind of smudge it with your finger, and that really blends those little scratches in, and they will disappear, and you don't even have to use any paint on them at all. So I am going to do that on just those little scratches. That worked really well. It's almost a little darker there, but that looks a little bit like shadow now rather than look like scratches. It looks like just a shadowy part of the lithograph. So I went back, and anywhere else I saw a little red spot that could use that touch up, I have already done that. It's a good time to get that kind of stuff done when especially if you've got your piece apart. Like I said, I've gone back and I've flattened out everything that needed flattened out that I could. It's a good time to do it when it's apart because, you may never have it apart again. So this is your time to really do that. Now I've changed my mind. I think I'm going to try to lightly sand some of these. They do have quite a little bit of rough texture to them. So I think I'm going to lightly try to sand that very lightly, so I can take that top rough part off without damaging the lithograph. And the same way here on the floor, probably just on this part. So I use a fine grit sand. You probably can't tell, but when I do it, I'm going to show you with my finger. I push right there with my finger. So you'll see a bigger square of sandpaper, but I am just pushing right there where my finger is, a very small circular area, to get those little rough spots off. That way you're not removing lithographs from a large part. So let me get my sandpaper out and we'll get that done. When you see me check with my fingers, I'm trying to see if I've got that down to about the same level, got that thickest part of that corrosion off of there. After you get that done, wipe it off with rubbing alcohol again to get rid of any little rust pieces, or I call it rust dust. Get rid of your rust dust now before you do anything else. The other thing you want to be careful of, especially areas where the paint is kind of crazed, and you probably can't see, but this paint is a little bit crazed through there. All right, dear friends, let's get ready to paint. I've got my paints out here. People ask me what kind of paint do I use. Well, I like to use acrylic hobby paint. You can get this at Hobby Lobby. You can get it at Michael's. I've even bought it at Walmart. You can get some on Amazon. They're not very expensive, usually a couple of dollars a bottle. I've got several brands sitting out here. So I buy whatever's handy, whatever color I might think I need. And I've got out here what I think I'm going to use tonight, which is like green. There's a blue-green, a little bit of yellow. My favorite, buttermilk, which is a barely off-white. Also have white, and I have black and brown and red for the rough. I think that's what I'm going to need. We'll see. I might not use them all, and if I need more, I'll get some more out. I also have my cup of water over here, just a coffee cup with water in it. I've got 2 or 3 brushes. Grandma's up here watching me. I like to keep a paper towel handy to dab my brush on, get the water off of it when I clean my brush up. And also, this is my palette. This is actually an old cutting board that I've used for a palette for quite a while. So let's get it going. Now, as a reminder, when you mix paint, don't worry if you don't get the shade right the first time. You can adjust it and do another coat right over it. If you end up not liking the color because it's acrylic paint, you can wipe it right off and do it again. Nothing to worry about. And also remember, it's going to dry just a little bit darker than it is when it's wet. So if it goes on just a little bit light, don't worry about it. That's exactly what you want. And you really can't judge it if you have a good match or not until the paint dries. Now there's just a few spots here. We're going to start with the floor. Just a few spots. Green, I did sand that just lightly. Wiped it off then with my rubbing alcohol wipe. A few little spots up here. Not major. This is the worst part. Let's get that done and then we'll go from there. As a reminder, I always shake my bottles up. Depends, I might not have used this color for a while, so I always shake them up when I open them. And you might remember I've given you a hint before that I like to take paint and put a little dab or X on the top if it doesn't come with that. This one came with that little color on the top, but the red one did not. But look at this green bottle, it did not come with one, and I've not put that on there. Let's get that done for next time. I keep these down in a box on the floor. And so it's when I look down in there, it's always nice if I can look at the top and see what color is in the bottle. All right, I've got it mixed up. I used my regular like grass green. I used some of that buttermilk, that little bit off-white. And then I used just a teensy bit, a dab of yellow. And I think I've got a pretty good match. But remember, if it's not perfect, don't worry about it. You can do a second coat. A lot of times you're going to need more than one coat. Now on these little rust spots, I like to just dab a little on, then wipe it off with my finger. And a lot of times just that roughness will, it'll cover that up, and that absolutely did that on that particular spot. So I'm going to work on all of these little spots and do that same thing, and then we'll go back and see what needs more. I imagine these bigger spots will need another coat, but let's get all these little ones done, and then we'll look at where we stand. Right, I'm not quite done, but it's looking pretty good. Now here I thought I had the paint a little dark. You probably maybe can tell. So I lightened it up a little bit. So up here I maybe have a little light. And now that it's dry, I am going to go ahead and mix up some, again, a little darker, and color correct both of those. But one thing about these, when you work on them real close, you realize that over here, the original paint is darker just from age. And remember, I've cleaned this several times. So it's naturally a little darker over here, and then it gets a little lighter out here. I suppose maybe fading or just the way it's aged. I don't know. So even once you get your color mixed up, sometimes you'll have to do a little color adjusting for those spots where the color is different. So I'm going to fix those spots. This one here needs another coat. I thinned that paint down. I put a little drop of water in it, and that was very effective over here on some of these light rust spots, but they're probably going to need another coat. And I've got a few over here that I've not touched up yet at all, but my paint little spot has gotten, I've used up what was there. So let me get some more mixed up and we'll finish it up. Now, something I've never shared with you before, but as I mix these colors up, if I lighten or dark, you can kind of use your spot on your palette to see, am I making this lighter than it was or darker than it was? Because this ring around the edge was what my original paint was that I used. This one in the middle is the stuff I just mixed up. And it looks like that my new paint's a little bit lighter than what I had at the start, but remember, it will dry just a little bit darker. But use your palette to help you adjust that color. If you think you need a little lighter, add a little bit of white, put it in there, and then compare to your edge and see, in fact, was that just a little bit lighter? Okay, I thought some of that was a little too bright, so I've taken my wet cloth and I'm wiping some of that off. And I've toned that paint down just a little bit by adding a little bit of brown to my green and white. So you can look at my spot now and see that it's a little more of an olive color to it. So I'm going to mix some more of that up and then go back over this one more time, and I think we're getting there. Here you can see I took some of that paint off, so the brown's showing through again. Some of these others I toned down with a little bit of that olive paint. So let's get a little more mixed up, and then I think we'll have her done. All right, dear friends, I am really happy with that green on there. All that rust is covered up. Those spots that were just barely brown, I just tapped a little of that green. That corrected green, a little more muted, a little more olive green, was a really good match. So this, it looks pretty good. Now can you tell there's some little flecks on here that were original, little painted flecks on top of the green. So I'm going to attempt to do that over here in these spots where I put quite a little bit of paint. You can't see those white flecks. I'm not sure if I will have to, I don't know if I can dot my brush and make those, or if I'm going to have to put paint on there and kind of flick it on there. We'll give it a try. And then also some of these little white lines have been obliterated, and I have got a little tiny paintbrush here, my little tiny paintbrush that I'm going to use to try to trace those lines back in. So first I'm going to mix up some white paint, and again I always need to use like an off-white, a cream paint, and I'll start with my buttermilk, and then I might put a little brown on there. You'd be surprised how much darker that white paint is through the years. It ages and it gets a little bit brown or tan. So I'm going to do that. And I'll probably paint those lines off camera because I have to I'm getting, older. I have to get my face really close to get that stuff painted. So I'll give it a try and then show you how it came out. All right, I've painted a few of these lines and it's gone really well. And I want to tell you how I do it to get a real fine line. I lay a piece of tape. This is just like Scotch tape, right next to the line. In this case, the line was, it was faded and gone and rusted and so on. And then I take my little brush and paint right next to that line, right next to that tape, and then I can get paint over here on this side where the tape is, and then I just want to get that really thin line of paint there on the other side. And so I'm using my buttermilk paint. I didn't have to mix anything into it this time. And we're just going to run that paint right there along the edge of that tape. And that will let me paint a nice thin line. Now let's take this off, take the tape off and see how it looks. See, I left a nice thin line there. So I've got a couple more to fill in, so I will get that done. All right, I have got the floor done. I went ahead and touched up that green color, put some little white dots on there, filled in the lines that were missing. Over here, there were just a few brownish spots that had a little bit of little brown rust type or brown stain. Touched all those up. I am done with the floor. I think it looks really, really good. Okay, about the only thing else we have to do is touch up some of the white here. There's a little bit of white here and there. So I'm going to mix up again a nice cream colored white and go through and touch up white on all of these. And the only other place that I thought could use a little paint was right in here. And it'd be hard to see, but part of that graphic's gone. There's a little bit of paint gone right at the end of my fingernail. And it's, let me get my little paintbrush here and I'll show you how big the area is. It's about that little area there is dark, and you see where it's green here? I put a little bit of marker on there, and tried to see what that would do. Well, it's the wrong color green. So this should be like a dark gray to kind of match this can over here, or a light gray, and over here some dark shadow. So I'm going to touch that up too with some dark gray. Otherwise, I think we're going to be done. Oh, I got to work on this side too. This has got a lot of real light, fine, like rust or something. It's the paint is gone in little tiny areas. So I'll be touching that up too. That's probably going to take a little bit longer. Let's get the white done first, then we'll work on that, and then we're going to have this painted. I ran out of time, friends, so I hope you'll come back to part 2 of fixing up the Marx Pet Shop. We'll finish painting, we'll polish it, we'll assemble it, and it will be done, and it will be beautiful. Oh, and please subscribe to my channel. Thank you.